You're listening to Kayak Flyer with your host, Sean. Tonight, we're brought to you by Tennessee Trailers, OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com. Simply the best way to get your kayak to and from the water. Bajuco Flats Flyco. Simply the best custom-made fly rods on the market, always built to order just the way you want it. Find Bajuco Flats Flyco on Instagram and Facebook. StoneflyNets.com, made 100% in the great state of Arkansas with your choice of woods or burls. Stonefly nets can even be customized for that favorite fisher person in your life. Check out StoneflyNets.com for details. CutthroatFurledLeaders.com, the only leaders that I fish with. Cutthroat Furled Leaders are excellent for saltwater, freshwater, trout, bass, you name it, you can catch it with a Cutthroat Furled Leader. Head to CutthroatFurledLeaders.com, promo code KAYAK to save 15%. Hey gang, one of the best things about being on the Kayak Flyer podcast, I have a really great friend, love him a lot. And he's here with the show with me tonight, and that's Nick Chabaria. Nicky, buddy, we haven't fished in an age, but you are like one of the premier fishermen that I know.
I don't know about that one, but yes, it has been quite a while. I'm hoping to get some warm days here, early spring, late winter, that we can get out and hit the river. But yeah, man, it's been great getting to know you through fishing the last 6-7 years now.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for a while, and things have been really well. But one of the things that really blows me away is your knowledge of fishing. I mean, I'm old enough to be your uncle, not your dad, but your uncle. But every time I go fishing with you, you always have something incredible going on. And one of the things you've been doing lately is, especially when you were down in Louisiana, was kayak bass tournaments. So I thought we could talk about that.
Yeah, it was something. The tournament scene is something I got into when I was down in Louisiana. Obviously we met when we were fishing some of the Ozark streams, and a while back, and then I wanted to move down to Louisiana for a few years, and we have really got into the tournament scene down there. It's a great area. It's a great state, for all kinds of fishing opportunities, inshore bass, river, anything you really want down there. And coming from the Midwest, it's incredible to be fishing, January, February, in short sleeves and a t-shirt. That is one thing I miss now being back here in Missouri. But
and we're not going to hold it against you that you're a Yankee.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Mizzou guy, so I guess you can give me that.
Yeah, and the thing was, even the last time we were down there fishing together, you learned so much about being down there, and with the fishing down there, and even cooking. You were putting redfish on the half shell. It was
Yeah, it's incredible, the culture down there. I mean, it's you don't realize it, especially coming from the Midwest, growing up in the Chicago area, living in Missouri, and then going down there. When you're that close to the water, when you're on the coast like that, it's just ingrained in the culture. The sport of fishing, but especially fishing for put food on your table. Anything that swims will fry is pretty much the motto down there, and that there's really no exception to that. It was interesting to me being a bass guy going down there. Obviously, I enjoyed catching the specks and the reds, but people would be bringing in stringers of bass, at any trip out. It was kind of the bycatch. They called them green trout, and they would throw them in with the speckled trout and the redfish, and all tasted the same once you put some batter on it. But it's really something down there, just the culture of it, and how many people enjoy spending time on the water year round. It's pretty special.
Just the amount of water they have down there is amazing. And
a lot of water, and a lot of good kayak water too. It's almost more beneficial to have a kayak down there than trying to be running a big boat around some of those shallow, pockets in the shallow marsh.
yeah,
It's really great to kayak down there as well.
yeah, that was one of the things that blew me away. And kayaking down there is because there's so much open water and so many alligators and so many sharks and dolphins. You never know what you're going to get when you put into the water down there. And you know, here in the Midwest, and you and I'm freaking out because this is the first time we've done this podcast, and I'm seeing stuff on one of the levels that I have to apologize for if I freak out for it. But um, talking about eating bass, we don't eat bass up here.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, Missouri is catch and release. I mean, it's some people will eat bass, but if you want a good fish to eat, it's walleye and crappie. But down there, it's like these guys are on a whole nother level. They're still, you catch it, you eat it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the good thing about fishing down there, especially the marsh, is there's really the bass kind of just the populations. I mean, they're just free to keep reproducing it, and the numbers stay up because I mean, you think about it. Obviously, you have a reservoir in Missouri. If you outfish it, you outfish it. You know what I mean? If you're keeping bass and that sort of thing, I mean, there's a finite number in there. But when you're talking about the marsh with the Mississippi right there, and some of the other lakes and some of the other basins that flow out of Louisiana, the bass they typically the marsh bass won't grow as big as they will even in the lake here in Missouri, but yeah, there's plenty of numbers down there, which is why I think people have no problem keeping them.
And I have no problem with people keeping fish. That's not an issue that I have. You know that. You and I have eaten fish. But I really want to talk about some of this kayak bass fishing that you've been doing down there and you're thinking about starting back up here. Um, can you tell me some of that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of keeping bass, this is the other side of the spectrum here with catch photo release tournaments. Um, so the kayak scene, obviously everywhere is kind of taken off. It seems like in the last 5 to 6 years, and with that, certainly tournament fishing. I mean, obviously the kind of standard and the traditional is the bass boats and the john boats, and going out for some derbies on the weekend. Kind of local thing, but kayaking has really taken hold, in the last several years, and tournament kayaking on a high level as well. I got involved in, one of the first kayak bass fishing clubs in the state of Louisiana. As surprising as it sounds, that there's a lot of inshore, obviously, and there's a lot of good fishing in North Louisiana, a lot of good kind of traditional lake fishing North Louisiana. But when you get down south where I was at, around the New Orleans area, the bass fishing can actually be a little bit tough. Like I said, you get the marsh bass, they don't grow quite as big, the size isn't quite there. And, a lot of the lakes, it's a lot of shallow, kind of muddy lakes as opposed to, a little bit more rocky, up north. But anyway, so this was Bam Basson, which actually I'm wearing one of their hats right now. They were kind of one of the first statewide groups to really target the kayak bass angler. And they got it off the ground, I think 2 years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago. And it really it took a while to take hold. Our numbers for tournaments, we do about one a month, and they'd average maybe 10 to 15 anglers. Not huge payouts, but all guys that just loved the sport and loved competing. That was it for me, was finding a way to continue to fish. I love to fish. I'll fish, any opportunity I can, but then also competing, once a month, or however often it may be. It just adds another element, and it's something I really enjoy. And just you talk about the tournaments now. I mean, you have the Hobie BOS, which is a huge national tournament. Obviously, KBF, I know you heard of, has been around for quite some time. BASS, Bassmaster, they have their own series now. You can compete on any level you want in kayak tournaments, and win some good money if that's what you're after. So it's really exciting to see where the sport's going right now.
And you were in on the ground floor down there with our setup down there in Louisiana. But you're also looking into doing some stuff here in Missouri and in the area. I mean, Illinois has got some really great bass areas. Um, I, what is it like? I've never fished a tournament. I mean, you know me. I go out. I take a 6 pack of beer and I go fish and I have a good time. But you're actually doing this for money. What does that change for you when you're fishing?
Yeah, well, obviously, and hey, man, I love our days on the water, our floats. If somebody's falling out of their kayak, no matter what, I mean, that's just a given. We always have a good time. So I appreciate those days. But like I said, just being able to be competitive once in a while, it changes the whole game. I mean, especially fishing. I mean, these kayak tournaments, especially here in Missouri, for example, you're fishing Table Rock, you're fishing like the Ozarks, Stockton, Truman. I mean, all the big, typical bass lakes. But you're doing it out of a kayak, and what that really forces you to do is really do a lot of homework and a lot of research before you even hit the water. You're obviously not running around the lake in a kayak, hitting 5 or 6 different spots. You pretty much gotta, for the most part, you got to find your area and stick to it and find a way to make them bite. So, for me, and this has really come on as I've done more tournaments, and kind of gotten more into it, is the research and the homework ahead of time. I'll start maybe a couple weeks out looking at, Navionics, the Navionics app on my phone or computer, and looking for possibly good areas, kind of knowing what the fish are doing. Of course, tons of fishing reports on Facebook for any given lake. So really, really just kind of doing that homework ahead of time. It's tough too because tournaments usually on Saturday. I work a 9 to 5 job, so unless I'm taking off work on Friday, you're not getting practice. And some of the guys that have the flexibility, they'll go free fish 3 or 4 days before the tournament, and and they got their spots figured out. So to me, it's all part of the game. It's all part of the puzzle. And when you have those good days in the water, after putting the time in, it makes it that much more special. So it's fun all around for me.
You saying you work is what makes me laugh.
Why is that?
We all know you don't work.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, man, I tell you though, it's getting. There's been a couple tournaments in the past, maybe a Sunday tournament or something when I was in Louisiana, but being able to pre-fish like Saturday or Friday, it makes all the difference. I mean, it's not even if you find the fish; it's knowing where you're not gonna fish. You got 8 hours usually, to figure them out and get 5 good ones, and just knowing where you're not going to go is half the battle. You save half your day right there, just finding areas that aren't going to produce.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what's so funny is, I mean, I fly fish and spin fish, and you spin fish a lot, and we use totally different tactics. I use a lot of soft plastics on my spinner, and you don't always use soft plastics on your spinners. And you are, I don't want to be nice to you when I say this.
Don't be mean to me. You can hurt me. It's okay.
But when I go fishing with you, I get outfished with a rod and reel. I mean, you know, you understand, you look at the stuff and you know which bank to avoid and which bank to hit on the rivers. And I think that's an incredible thing. And I've always admired you for that. But man, when we go out to go fishing, it's like, what's Chachi putting on? It's like I'm watching you because if I'm using a spinning reel, you have it nailed in. And I can only think that having the experience in Louisiana, having the experience in Missouri, going to Louisiana and coming back, you've got to have some tips and tricks that really show off what the best things to get are and what the best lures are and things like that.
Yeah, I mean anybody who knows who's fished, regionally or across the country or different state. I mean, or shoot, even across the state. You know they're going to be biting something different than they are at your home lake. And yeah, definitely living in Louisiana for a few years, trying to figure lake bass out. I mean, the bayous and the marshes. That's a totally different ballgame than some of the steep rocky banks we have here in Missouri. I will say I'm very happy to be back on the steep rocky banks in Missouri. As much as fun as it was to fish down south, it's tough, man. It's summers are brutal. It's kind of the opposite there, where they'll shut down during the summer, as opposed to the winter here. That summer bite is tough, and a lot of dark water, a lot of stained water. So yeah, I mean, it's having a little bit of experience, going down there for a time and fishing down there. I think it's definitely helped up here, just kind of opening, I don't sound cliche, but opening my mind to different tactics, different lures, and and I think that's what it's all about, is not getting too caught up in one technique. And yeah, sure, maybe it's caught you at lunch one day, but as you know, man, every day is different on the river, every day different on the lake. So being able to be flexible and figure them out.
Is there a pattern that you or a pattern, a lure? Is there a lure you like more than some of the others?
This is what it's all about. It's all about confidence. I mean, you know it. If you feel like you got something, you're going to throw it longer. You're going to put more effort into throwing it, and probably find a few more bites. But my go to for the last probably 4 to 5 years, and even before I moved to Louisiana, but especially down there, it really showed me kind of its capabilities of chatterbait. You can fish it year round. You can fish it deep. You can fish it shallow, around grass, around wood. And it's just for me, especially for kayak, it's a good moving bait to try to cover some water. And find those active fish. I know a lot of guys like crankbaits for that. I like crankbaits can be good too, but not too much from kayak. To me, they can be a little bit difficult to fish sometimes. But chatterbait in the wind, again, you fish it high in the water column, deep. That's kind of been my go-to. At least that's what I start with a lot of times. Whenever I go out.
Yeah, the chatterbaits I think are really great. Um, no problem with them at all. Crankbaits work really well. I grew up as a spinnerbait guy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's if I'm going to throw something, a spinnerbait's where I've got my confidence. And a lot of this, I think we get, and you know me, I like to throw like you do. I like to throw three different kinds of baits, and that's it. Or how many flies do I tie a year? And I fish three different patterns, you know. But when it comes down to it, when you're talking about these tournaments, you know, I keep a fly rod and a spinning rod on my kayak most of the time, depending on the water I'm in. But now these tournaments, you guys are running multiple rods, aren't you? Just to have different things set up for different times.
Yeah, for the most part, and that's different for everyone. I mean, you can kind of see this is my setup down here actually, but I typically try to take no more than five, and again, it's kind of the fun for me with the kayak is, you limit yourself a little bit on what you can take, right? You're not packing the whole kitchen sink and every piece of tackle you own, but really finding rods and combos that you can use across multiple different presentations. It's that's part of the fun for me with it, with the kayak side of it. So yeah, I usually take about five, and the funny thing is, you have these guys that even on a kayak will take, 8, 10, 12 rods, and hey, more power to them, whatever they need, to whatever they think they need to get out there. But when it comes down to it, especially again, like I mentioned, you're not running all over the lake. You're for the most part, you're sticking in one area, fishing one type of cover or one type of depth, and usually it's just one rod in your hand the entire day. Sure the other rods come in handy when you're trying to figure them out and maybe do some searching and try to find some areas. But what usually in a kayak when you find them in a certain spot or certain depth, you're fishing one rod and one lure. It's been rare that I've had successful days in tournaments where I've been throwing 3 or 4 different rods at her. It just usually doesn't happen. So and that's the thing. I don't know if people are thinking about getting into it. Don't let what equipment you have kind of get in the way, or don't let it discourage you because you know you're
Well,
fishing for.
I know we can't all have those nice Apex kayaks like you've got.
But yeah. Well, that's another thing. I mean, yeah, I hope you're bringing this up for that fact, man. That's my first kayak that I fished out. I've had it for 5 years now, and I got it for $450 with the Cabela's.
No,
And anybody,
I mean the new Apex, the Jackson, like Eric Jackson kayak Apex.
oh, I don't have one of those, man. That's what I'm saying. That's $450 from Cabela's, 5-year-old kayak. You can get out in anything. You got guys, and no offense to any Hobie guys listening, no offense to any pedal drive guys listening, but I'll tell you, it's just the personal competitive side of me that when I'm paddling, 5 or 6 miles in the tournament to cover water, and I come in, ahead of those Hobie guys in the standings, it's kind of a personal, little treat for me. But I don't bring it up, and everybody's got their preferences. So we'll
You,
leave it at that.
you've got to check out that because Eric Jackson left Jackson Kayaks.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, well you obviously haven't listened to the show.
I'm behind on a few episodes.
Well, we had Eric on, and he's got this fishing kayak, and it's all carbon fiber.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember the concept when it came out. I remember. Yeah, those look nice. Are they on the market yet, or what's going on?
Yes.
Wow.
Stupid expensive. Oh, but I'm gonna tell you what, huh?
What does it weigh, like 20 pounds or something ridiculous like that?
I
Yeah,
think I think it's 40 with the seat,
that's crazy.
and it doesn't have a back, and it doesn't have scupper holes. So water comes in and it's slanted. The water just rolls off the back.
I don't know if you find me in one of those, but
Well,
hey, man,
what are you doing? I'm going down to Chattanooga to pick up a trailer from Tennessee Trailers, outdooradventuretrailers.com. If you want to go, we'll stop by and we'll test drive a couple of those kayaks. As Eric already said, I'm more than welcome to.
man, if you get in one of those, you'll probably flip it. I mean, shit, I probably.
We know I'm going to flip it. I'm just asking if you want to come along.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna test one of those out. Sure, why not?
Oh, man, we're going down there. It's going to be a good time. We're going to go to Chickamauga.
Yeah,
Um, the wife and I are going to be staying in Chattanooga. Soddy Daisy is right there where outdooradventuretrailers.com, Tennessee Trailers. And then just up the street is Eric Jackson's shop. And so we're probably going to swing by and hang out and talk to Eric for a day and get one of those Apex out on the water. And, it's the evolution of it. Like your kayak and my kayak, like my first kayak was cheaper than your kayak. I mean,
yeah, yeah. I remember. I
oh,
remember.
yo, that was a rough kayak. And
You were,
then,
you were dragging bottom about 2 feet of water with that thing.
but it got me out there. And then I bought a
Yeah.
better kayak, and you're still out fishing me.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. It don't matter the price tag on your kayak. You know, people are gonna beat you in a float tube if they got it. So yeah,
As
that's have to.
as
You spend some crazy money on kayaks now. I'll tell you what.
as long as Grant doesn't throw you into shark infested water.
Yeah, that or get ahead of you and spook all the fish. He's sorry, Grant.
I invited him onto the show tonight as a surprise for you. And you know what the asshole did instead of coming on the show?
What do you
He gave me a bunch of shit that he had ordered for me to tie him flies.
do? Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
I'm like sitting here going, okay, I'll invite you on the show. And he's like, well, come by. Let's talk about it. So I'm like, yeah, Nikki's going to be on. It'll be fun, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I can't make it, but I bought this stuff if you can tie my flies for me.
Man, you're tying his flies. I was tying his leaders last time we went fishing. I don't know what he does by himself.
He doesn't do anything. He falls off his kayak and has to go to the hospital.
Oh man. Oh man.
So last time you and I actually saw each other person to person, you fixed a beautiful lunch.
Oh yes. Yeah, a little short.
Can you just, I'm jealous of this. Can you lay that down real quick what you did?
Look, man, it was our first time back on the waters. I moved back to Missouri, and this was back last September, I think, or August maybe. And floating the rivers with you guys is kind of how I started my kayak fishing journey, if you will. And I really missed all that when I was away for a few years, and kind of wanted to get back out there and just make a day of it. So brought some Johnsonvilles, and we were gonna just cook them up on the shore and have a good old time. And I think we did. I think we accomplished that. I mean, this is a typical kayak fishing, river fishing day for us. I don't even think we covered what 3 miles.
Yeah, it was less than 3 miles, and it was 8 or 9 hours.
Exactly, a whole day for 3 miles because we're stopping, we're drinking, we're cooking up our brats, and it's a good time though. It was much needed, after a long year everyone's had, and getting back out on the river with you guys, and always a fun time.
Yeah, and you had onions and butter in and green peppers in aluminum
It,
foil, and we dug out a hole on the gravel bar, and we had a grate,
yeah,
and we started a fire with driftwood, and we ate really well, and I couldn't tell you who caught the most fish or who caught the biggest fish because that was secondary to the fun we had that day.
oh yeah, I mean absolutely. I think it started raining at one point. We barely made it off before dark, but We may have lost a guy or two, but no, it was yeah. It's always a good time, and that's half of it too. Especially the flow. It's different than if you all go out on the lake. One day everyone's speed, everyone. You can only go so far, but when you're floating, that takes half the work away for you right there, and then you have time to enjoy all that other stuff.
I think that's one of the things, and we've got listeners that are saltwater guys, we've got listeners that are freshwater guys, we've got everybody, but I don't think our listeners under, excuse me, I belched. I don't think our listeners fully understand just what it's like when you have what we've got me and you and Brian and Todd and Grant. So there's five of us. And you put in and you just float 2 miles in 8 hours. And nobody's worried about who's catching more. People are just floating and fishing, and it's just, you're relaxed, everything's fun, everything's nice. And I think sometimes we get caught up in all this other stuff, and it's just like, just sit down, relax, enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hit it right in the head, and I hope wherever anybody's listening, I'll go beyond what kind of you said, and I don't think people realize, how nice the Ozark streams are we have here in southeast Missouri and in south central Missouri. Again, being able to fish kind of near the coast and down south, I wouldn't trade what we have here for anything. It's some of the nicest area, crystal clear water, and big smallmouth. I mean, it's kind of funny to me again, just making friends down in Louisiana with some of the bass guys down there, and a lot of them never caught a smallmouth before. Obviously because they're not down there. And I'm like, man, we can come up to Missouri. I'll take you to a stream. We'll catch all the smallmouth you want. We kind of take it for granted sometimes, but being able to do that and get in the water and I mean, not even see another soul, while we're out there and take our time and have a few beers and yeah, it's. I hope everybody gets a chance to come float, in Missouri or yeah, I've never been, but Arkansas. I know you've been down there. Any of those areas, man, it's special.
I love Arkansas, and you're going to be going trout fishing with me before too long
I
down in
hope so.
Arkansas.
I
I
hope so.
I made a mistake. I got some I got some size 14 hooks. I didn't realize how small they were. I've been trying to tie trout flies,
Yeah,
and I've been catching trout at the pond over in the neighboring town where they put the trout in for the winter.
yeah.
So they work.
That's good.
So you're gonna have to go down to Spring River with me in the next month and month and a half, 2 months at worst. And
I'm gonna.
they've got Goldens in there, which are a hybrid of I think rainbows and cutthroats.
Hmm,
They're golden trout, and then they have tiger trout, which are brook trout and browns.
wow. Yeah, you guys are the trout guys. You're gonna have to. I'm gonna be walking on you for
Well,
that stuff.
I mean,
That
that's the
sounds
fun.
fun.
I'm not a trout guy. It's just that you can go down there, and in the summertime, the girls go woo. So you go down and you fish for like 4 hours, and then you just sit and drink beer and watch all the girls go by going woo. And then they throw you beers when they're going woo. That's the best thing. You're not throwing them beers; they're throwing you beers.
Are you talking about like Woo Pig?
Like woo, like Mardi Gras, woo.
Oh man, yeah, that's a trip.
I'm telling you, it's. Here's what it is: it's fishing, beer, boobs, beer, boobs, beer, boobs, beer, fishing. That's your day.
Well, Arkansas sounds like a wild time.
Oh, I'm telling you what, dude. Grant liked to shit his pants the first time we were down there because this girl comes by in a raft and she's like, "Hey, you want a beer?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She chucks me a beer and she's like, "Woo!" And Grant's like, and I'm like, "It happens, dude. I'm attractive."
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was for you.
But a 20-inch rainbow is small down there.
Wow.
And we're talking what up here. You know, like me, a smallmouth wakes up mad and gets angrier the longer it's awake.
Yeah.
These trout down there at 20 inch are fighting like a 10 to 12 inch smallie here. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fun time. You've got to go. We've got to get this together.
Yeah. They're Broken Bow, right? You've been over there too.
Broken Bow is neat, but you cannot have a beer on. You can't have any alcohol on the water at Broken Bow.
Oh wow.
So the mayor, if you go to Lower Mountain, it's Lower Mountain Fork, uh, floats or something like that. The mayor runs that Facebook
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
Dude, he's got like 4 water bottles, and they're all Patron because he can't have beer, so he has Patron.
Smart. Smart.
But the fun thing about that place is they have freshwater drum,
Oh yeah.
and so
That,
you'll
that, 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 I've heard that's redfish. I mean, they're both a drum family, but I haven't cooked up any freshwater drum, but I heard they taste just like them.
we blackened them,
Nice.
taste exactly like it. And so you'll see a smallie out there, and let's say you've got a like a TDR
Mm-hmm.
or yeah TDR worm,
Nedry.
and you'll see a Ned rig, and you'll see a 2 or 3 smallmouth, and you'll cast it. These drum will come out of nowhere. And we're talking like shit, probably 2 to 3 pound,
Yeah. Oh, easy.
18 to 25 inches. I mean, big drum.
Yeah.
And like, well, you know Lane, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Lane was videotaping me getting pulled around by this drum. I mean, it was like I'm sitting here with my rod going, what am I going to do? And I'm getting pulled around by this. And we brought it back home, did a half shell like we would a redfish, blackened that bad boy, and we kept 2 largemouth bass. I caught a big ass catfish on the fly rod.
No kidding.
Oh shit, I was cast into a smallie on the fly rod and hooked into a catfish. Todd had to paddle up and grab a hold of the puller string on the back of my kayak, where you've got the tow rope.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he got out of the water and was holding on to me. And Grant was paddling around trying to net this catfish.
I
Because
can picture somehow. I can picture all that.
oh my, it was stupid nuts. I mean, this catfish is just going nuts, and I was fishing for a 12 to 14 inch smallie.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I've got this 4 pound, 5 pound catfish on. Oh, forget about it. It was great though. So we cooked the catfish. We kept a couple of largemouth bass, and we kept those black drum. And we fried them. We did them all the same way. We cooked them all the same way. There was no batter. It was butter, blackening seasoning, and that was it. Pan
Yeah.
fried. And the fish that was absolute last was the bass. Nobody
Mm.
wanted it. And the first fish to go was the drum.
I bet.
And people were like, "What is this?" They're like, "I like this one. What's this one?" And we're telling them, we're like, "What? It's a drum?" Yeah.
Sometimes it's all just a mental thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, I tell you, getting turned on those redfish down there, how we had it on the half shell, and like, oh my god. And what's crazy is you go in the supermarket and it's selling. I'm not kidding you. I have a picture. It's selling for over $20 a pound for a redfish fillet.
Holy hell.
It's because there's no real commercial fishing for them. I mean, people do sell them, but you can't really net them. There's no real cost-effective way to get them in. So yeah, man, it's yeah, that makes it even more, even better.
Yeah.
You're out there and you're getting them in.
It's an absolutely incredible tasting fish, but sea trout,
Yeah.
I kind of think they almost taste better.
Well, it's interesting because anybody who's from down there will know that the guys fishing down there, they prefer the sea trout for a couple of reasons. One, people generally think that they do taste better than redfish. When you fry them, when you fry up the fillets or fry up the nuggets. But also the limits down there. I think if I remember correctly now, I think it's 20 speckled trout a day, 20 or 25.
I think it's
And
25 is what I thought.
yeah, okay. And I mean, so guys go out there and I mean, some of those hardcore guys will go limit out 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And I mean, they'll stuff their freezers, they'll give it away, whatever they do. But it's really interesting. And then the redfish, when you think about it, of a sporting fish, that's redfish have to be in the top at least 10, maybe five for sporting fish. I mean, pound for pound, those things, they'll take you for a ride.
Oh yeah.
And you're fishing for them on typical bass gear for the most part. Not nothing heavy. But anyway, so you get five of those, and is your limit. And they're a
And
little bit
four have to be in slot, but you can get one above slot each day, right?
Yeah. You get one where you get 16-inch to 20,
7.
20 slot, 27-inch slot, and you get one above slot. But to be honest, the ones above slot, the meat's kind of soft and mushy at that point. I really didn't keep any like that, but anything right around 16 to 20 inches, that's where you want it right there. And they're a little bit smaller, but that meat is so good. And yeah, but the guys, the local guys, it was kind of great for me because obviously I wanted to fish redfish all the time. And even with the trout are a little bit deeper. They move a lot more. So it's tough to chase them in the kayak unless it's wintertime and they're in the marsh. You really got to kind of know where they're at or be able to have a grab or something. But yeah, so the local guys usually leave the redfish alone. It's all the tourists and the out of towners like myself that they want them, and it was great, man. It was great to have.
What got me so bad was we went on Calm Waters charter. Really nice guy. And I think Grant hooked up first. And then I think Todd hooked up. And then it was my turn. And the guy after Grant pulls in his bull red at, 40 some inches. You gonna keep it? No, throw it back. Todd's like, no, throw it back. I pull mine in. And he goes, are you going to keep it? And Grant yells, yeah, he's going to keep it. And so he threw mine into the cooler. And then Art got his, and Art's like, yeah, I'm not going to keep it. And we get done, and I'm like, so why are we keeping my fish? And Grant's like, we're taking photos of you with this fish. We're going to eat your fish tonight. You know what I mean? He's like, it's like, because, Grant's a good guy. But it was so funny that he's like, we could have kept shit. I mean, mine was 47, I think, inches. Yeah. And we had plenty over 44.
Yeah.
But it's like, we're just going to keep my fish. And so I've got my picture of me at the dock with it and everything else, And it was, the sport of it was so unreal to catch it like that.
What'd you get them on?
Well, cut mullet.
On the bottom?
Yeah, we had to move because of sharks.
Yeah.
And then the year after we went, I wound up with a black tip. Because the way it hit and the way I set the hook, I actually landed a black tip.
Nice.
It was nuts. So that was the year after you were down. So
right.
the first year in Grand Isle when you were down, that was when we caught the big ones that we kept. The next year in Grand Isle when you couldn't come down, everybody got a redfish and I got a 5.5 foot black tip shark.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you pull up from there.
Yeah. And then about 12 hours after I landed that black tip, I fell out in the water that I caught the black tip in.
I wouldn't be worried about the sharks, man. I'd be worried about the gators. But
I'm gonna tell you what, it's a whole new. I just think, and you live there, but that has got to be an incredible place to just live and fish in.
Yeah, I mean it's unlike anywhere I've ever been. Especially even fished. I mean, again, coming from the Midwest, it was a culture shock, a little bit. And even fishing. It was, it was basically starting from the ground up. Yeah, I remember the first time I took the kayak out by myself, and just trying to find spots on Google Map and try to figure out some spots maybe in the marsh to catch some bass and maybe redfish. And I never caught a redfish before. I never seen one in person. And I remember I'm throwing a spinner bait and trying to catch some bass, just paddling around in a shallow marsh, and all of a sudden I see something wake on it right near the boat, and it's flashing like red and orange. I'm like, okay, so the redfish are in the area. And so I put on a little swim bait, throwing that around, and I hooked one, and I remember it took off. Now I had my light, spinning rod for bass, and I think destroyed, broke off. And I remember I finally landed one that day. I got one. It was probably about 50 inches. But, from then on, it was it. And again, being a bass guy, if you ever get a chance to go down and fish redfish, you're throwing the same stuff, pretty much. You're throwing little swim baits, maybe spinner baits, chatter baits, spoons. Yeah, it carries over very nicely. But the thing for me was, trying to learn the hardest thing I will say fishing there, even for the tournaments that we did for bass, was learning the tides. Tides, obviously we don't deal with that up here. Yeah, that's something else. And kind of the long and short of it is, anytime there's water moving, you're in good shape. But as soon as that tide goes slack, it's amazing. I mean, the fish will shut off. So it's a whole ball game.
The tides are a whole nother fight that it's really difficult to fight those tides, and when you can be here, when you can be there, how you can set it up. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, not only just for the fishing, but for the paddling too. Especially down in Grand Island, man. Those tides are very strong, and yeah, not that you're going to get carried out to sea, but you're going to be fighting, fighting the moving water the entire time. In one direction at least, and yeah, it just adds to the fun for me though. Trying to figure them out. Again, living down there, you have a little bit more time than when you guys come down for a week every year, but being able to figure them out and just trying something new. It's man, I'm glad to be back in the Midwest, and I love fishing up here. I love the Ozark streams, but I'm looking forward to getting back down there for the trip and getting back in the marsh for the redfish.
Well, Nick, I know you said you had to go a little bit earlier tonight, but we're going to have you back on the show now that we're on our own podcast network. We're on the Flying Kayak podcast network, and I'm hearing feedback. I don't know what it's coming from, so I may have to work on this. This may be a rough episode for our first one on the own network, but man, I'm going to tell you something. I don't say this to a lot of people, and you know me. You've known me for a long time. I don't like a lot of people. I won't go fishing with a lot of people, but you're one of the ones that you're class act.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. I owe the kayak fishing thing to you and Grant. You guys got me into it, so yeah, I wouldn't be here today talking to you if it wasn't for you. So yeah, hopefully when this weather warms up, maybe first warm day of spring I'm ready to hit the water again whenever you are.
Well, we all know you don't work, so you can just come down and whatever day you want to.
I don't know where that came in. I don't know where that started from, but man, I wish I did. I'd be fishing.
You're too damn good looking to work. You're like an underwear model.
Hey, find me a job that pays for that, and I'll take it.
I'll tell you what. Hey, we missed out. I bought a lottery ticket.
Yeah, how'd you do?
I didn't do well because we're doing the podcast tonight instead of looking at property in West Palm Beach or West Florida Keys, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All I'm asking for is a new kayak if you get it. If you hit big.
No, you're going to come to work for me.
Oh yeah,
okay. I'll pay you $250,000 a year, and all you got to do is tie a leader on a line once a week.
Done.
The lottery would be a great thing. Imagine how much trouble and how many countries we could be arrested in if we won that.
Oh man, yeah, it's probably better that you did it. The more I think about it.
I mean, how many countries do you think we could get arrested in if that happened?
It depends what for. I mean, are you getting out of the first, arrest? I mean, shit.
I'm just saying, you know what I'm like. I know what you're like.
Yeah. It'd be bad news. That's all I can say.
Chachi, this has been great. I'm going to have you back on. Dude, I just love talking to you.
Yeah. No, man, this is great. I'll talk to anybody about fishing anytime, I mean, pretty much everyone knows that. So. Yeah, man, this is good. I'm liking the new setup and looking forward to what you can put out. It's always entertaining. You get some great guests on, and it really is easy just to listen to and throw it on when you're relaxing or in the car.
Well, we got to, last week we had the guy that built the boat.
Yeah.
We're building a boat this summer. I've already told Anita that she cannot park in the garage. And
Hey, I'll tell you what. I'll go out there for the maiden voyage, and I'll stand on land and videotape you guys taking it out.
you'll
That's
videotape me flipping the
what I'm
boat.
willing to do.
You're gonna videotape me flipping the boat.
Yeah, well, I'll be on land, right? That's what I'm willing to do for you. I'm excited for that. That sounds great.
Nikki, man, this was great. Liam that you met at Dad's funeral said to tell you hi. Which I thought was Nick because he goes, "Who are you having on your podcast?" So he goes, I'm having Nikki," and he's like, "Yeah, tell him I said hi. He seemed like a nice kid." I'm like, "Yeah," I said, "I'll tell him." He said hi. But man, this was a great time. I really enjoyed it. We'll get you back on. Like I said, this is going to be the maiden voyage. We're going to have this on. If you're listening online, this will be on the Kayak Flyer Facebook. It'll be on the Kayak Flyer YouTube. This will be the first YouTube video we're going to put out
Awesome. Glad to
of the
be.
podcast. So we've got the fly tying tutorials and the vlog, but from now on, every podcast is going to go on YouTube as well.
Sweet.
So we're really hoping to move some things up, and I've got to recut a new intro tonight or tomorrow, and I've got to cut an outro to advertise the LLC for the company. But Nikki, it was great having you on. I know that we're a little bit shorter tonight than we normally are, but I know you're pressed for time. Who won the football today?
We had the Chiefs take the win, and I haven't seen an update on the Saints yet. So yeah,
Did McCombs did he get concussed?
yeah, he left the game, and it sounded like he's doing okay. He'll be back for next week, but Saints were up in the Bucks when we started. We'll see what happens.
Grant's stepson graduated high school with McCombs.
Really?
Yeah, Ethan
Wow, I didn't know that.
graduated. Yeah, he graduated, same class, same school, everything with McCombs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of neat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you like football, it's kind of neat.
yeah, it's like
Yeah, it's like we can just pick up the phone and call him and say, "Hey, do you remember this kid that you gave a wedgie to in the 4th grade? Well, his stepdad is my friend, whose friend I go fishing with."
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. It works great.
Let me know how the call goes.
I will. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll have you back on here. And more importantly, I sent you some pictures of flies that I tied that are lures.
Yeah.
So I've got those for you in that bright purple.
Yeah, can't wait to test those out.
Yeah, we're gonna get those. We're gonna get those going for you, and we're gonna have a hella good summer.
Yeah, man, can't wait. Let me know.
That sounds great. Talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.